Were there tornadoes across the UK on Monday? Just how wet has April, spring 2024 been so far? And are we in for a change in our weather patterns? I'll try and answer all of those questions in this week's Met Office Deep Dive. Welcome along. My name's Alex Deakin. I'm a weather presenter here at Met Office HQ. If this is your first deep dive, then, well, a very special welcome to you. Do hit the like button and do share the love. Let people know that the Met Office do this every week, an in-depth look at what's going on in our atmosphere. Please do keep your comments coming as well. We do love reading them. One comment I often get is that my preamble goes on a bit too long, so I'm going to shut up now and get on with the actual weather that's going on, because there's plenty to talk about. There always is. Here comes the wet weather that we've seen over the past 24 hours or so. This swirl on the satellite image, a low pressure system, an active cold front that drove its way southwards during the course of Monday and has left behind, well, you can see the winds coming down from the north. That's why things have turned a little chilly. Saturday was the warmest day of the year so far, 21.8 degrees Celsius. But since then, this low's moved in, and you can see the shower clouds there. Let's just pause that there, because that's quite beautiful. The shower clouds, just those lumpy shower clouds zooming in across the UK that have been flowing in behind this active cold front that brought many of us a wet start to the working week. The UK is under there somewhere, and we've seen plenty more showers since then packing in, coming in the winds now from the north or the northwest. That's why it's turned chilly and will stay on the chilly side for most of this week. More on that in a moment. But first of all, let us take a closer look at what happened yesterday with that cold front I talked about earlier, and in particular by looking at the radar and how we saw this band of rain swinging across the country. And then, well, look at all those showers. Look at all those April showers that have been packing in throughout yesterday. They died off a little bit through the night, as you'd expect, but we've seen more showers developing as we've been through the day. And that's the picture this morning. And we've seen more showers developing through this afternoon, quite widespread across England and Wales. A little drier slot there for central and southern Scotland. But you've been lucky if you've dodged the downpours today. Certainly very lucky if you dodged them yesterday. But let's take you back to yesterday morning, because really quite interesting feature, this band of rain. It's a cold front driving south, introducing the colder air, but it was particularly active. It was very lively. Again, let's zoom in and focus in across the North Midlands there. And this line here in particular, those bright reds and pinks that you can just make out in there. Line convection. You often get these active cold fronts swinging across the country that feature these narrow bands where the rain just suddenly intensifies, only for 5 or 10 minutes, and the winds suddenly gust up as well. That is line convection, when you get these really active but narrow bands of heavy downpours that accompany these cold fronts as they swing through. Now, this one's really quite interesting. You can see that line there, but if we zoom in closer on a different radar image from taken around about the same time here. Now, this is the same kind of thing, but it's a different colour scale, so don't let that worry you. The yellows that are showing the heavier rain on the radar. Now, actually zooming in closer, there's Stoke-on-Trent just there, and you can actually see it's not a straight line. There's these two little bows, if you like, almost three there. Little bowing going on, and echo bows are quite a well-known feature, particularly in America. They analyse these very active bows on the radar, showing really intense rainfall, and they're generated by thunderstorms within that active band, within that line convection, and the downdraft coming out of those cells, those thunderstorms, is actually generating this bowing within the radar. So it looks like a straight line, but if you're getting closer, you actually tend to find these little bows that happen. Now, on these bows, that's where the air is pushing out on the downdraft from the thunderstorm and creating these little semicircles. On them themselves, the winds really suddenly gust up, and they're going in a straight line, the winds here. And those straight line wind speeds can be pretty high, and they can cause some damage on their own. But what potentially happened yesterday morning, and this is from Nick Silkston, one of our deputy chiefs here at the Met Office. He's been looking at this yesterday. What he thinks is this secondary, this lower bow pushed further forward, and in here, as they broke apart, a little area of low pressure developed, and that helped to generate a little bit more spin. So he was saying that in this zone in particular, conditions would have been favourable for a tornado. Now, we haven't had it confirmed yet. There'll be more ongoing analysis of whether there was a tornado. There wasn't a lot of actual direct footage of it, but people will analyse the wind damage that it caused and make an assessment about whether it was a tornado or not, because it could have just been the straight line speed from these little bows that caused it. But, as I said, within this little breakage here, a little area of low pressure could have developed, which helped the spin, which may also may have introduced or increased the chances of it actually turning into a tornado. So as well as this bowing, we also had really favourable conditions for a tornado, because there was really strong wind shear at low levels yesterday. As this weather front moved its way across the country, conditions were pretty favourable for tornado development. And I'm going to try and show you what I mean by wind shear. Wind shear is basically the change of wind either with height through the atmosphere, or just it is with height through the atmosphere, but either with the speed changing or the direction, and sometimes it can be both. So wind shear in one sense, if you look at this as being the surface, let's get my lines right. So imagine that's the Earth's surface, and as you go up through the atmosphere, the winds are at different speeds. You probably notice this if you're stood still. Maybe it feels quite light, but you look up and the cumulus are moving much more rapidly than the winds feel on the surface that you can feel. So the winds will change direction as you go up through the atmosphere. So at low levels, let's just change it to a nice white arrow. At low levels, the winds might be doing that and just chugging along quite nicely and quite steadily. But then if you go 1,000 feet up, the winds are going faster, and then higher up in the atmosphere, the winds are going faster still. And the greater the change between the lower winds and those faster ones higher up, that's wind shear. The greater the wind shear. So that's one type of wind shear where the speed is changing as you're going up. But another type of wind shear is a change in direction. So imagine now you're looking down on the atmosphere, looking down from the atmosphere down to the surface, and the winds will be changing in both speed and perhaps direction as well. So if you've got one wind at the surface going like that, then you've got one a little higher up. Change the colour to make it a little easier to see. Could be going in a different direction. And again, you'll spot this if you're at the surface and you look up and you see the cumulus clouds at about 2,000 feet going one direction, but the cirrus clouds way up in the sky are going in a completely different direction. So you get that variation of wind direction the higher up you go, and that, as you can imagine, you're going up through the atmosphere, is also generating a spin. And if you've got strong wind shear, if you've got a big change in direction over a short space of time, that can also help to generate spin and help to generate big storms and potentially also tornadoes as well. So the conditions were right, because we had a lot of wind shear yesterday morning for those tornadoes, and as I've seen with that image of that bowing, that was near Stoke-on-Trent, but there was also something similar near to Nottingham, where again there was a potential tornado about an hour or so later. So, like I said, ongoing investigation to be conferred about whether it was or it wasn't a tornado, but conditions were ripe for tornadoes yesterday morning as that cold front moved its way through. So that was yesterday morning. What about the forecast? What's going on for the next few days? We've already seen plenty of April showers, but the weather patterns are shifting. This is the picture at the moment. This is the jet stream, the pink, that fast-moving ribbon of air high up in the atmosphere. It's driving its way down south across the UK. That steers low pressure systems, and that is the kind of setup that we've got at the moment. Look at this big area of high pressure. High pressure means the air is sinking. That's what generates the high pressure at the surface. That is where all the fine weather is, out in the Atlantic. But slowly but surely things are going to change. If we fast forward to Wednesday, the jet's still kind of doing the same thing, still taking these weather fronts, these weather systems, and pushing them down across the UK. Let's look at Thursday. Still in the same position, but it is just starting to creep away a little bit. The high pressure is getting closer, but it is a slow process because even by Friday, there's another low just drifting south, pushed along by the jet stream down into the North Sea. But finally, by the time we get to Saturday, the high has finally waddled its way in and is moving towards the UK. And so by the time we get to the weekend, look at that. The jet stream is more amplified, pushing further north and, crucially for us, diving down further away, further east. And so we're going to have high pressure sitting over us for the first time since about January, I suspect. And high pressure, as I said, means the air is sinking. It's low pressure where the air is rising. That's what generates clouds and rain. High pressure means drier weather, and also the isobars opening up as well. So for many, particularly in the west, the winds will be light. Not going to be completely dry. Weather fronts are still trying to dribble in, bringing a bit of rain across northern Scotland, but for many it's looking a lot drier for the weekend, because we can fast forward even to Sunday. And yeah, the high is still with us. Saturday and Sunday, hardly an isobar across the UK, so the winds will be light. There should be a lot of dry weather. And because it's now mid to mid-April, a bit of power in the sun, so if you get some sunshine, it will start to feel quite a bit warmer as well. So that's what's coming for the weekend. High pressure, sinking air, a lot of dry weather. How long it lasts? Well, I'll save that for Aidan and the 10-day trend tomorrow. There are some signs that the high will start to shrink away, and that could allow cooler conditions to spread back in. But certainly for the weekend, high pressure, drier weather. Many of us will see some sunshine as well, and temperatures should start to lift back up as well. Probably not going to be as warm as it was last weekend. As I said, Saturday was the warmest day of the year with 21.8 Celsius. Let's take a look at the temperatures, because they're going to be pretty interesting actually as we go through this week. What have we got at the moment? We've got northerly winds bringing a fairly cool feel. Temperatures generally, well, close to average across the south, perhaps at this time of year, but a little lower than average further north, single figures across northern Scotland. Actually, we're not going to see a great deal of change. If anything, tomorrow, slightly cooler. Probably be a bit more cloud around tomorrow, but the winds will be a little lighter tomorrow, so it'll probably feel pretty similar. Again, 10 to maybe 13 Celsius from north to south. Far from spectacular. Fast forward to Thursday, Friday, temperatures perhaps creeping up a little bit across the south. By the time we get to Saturday, we're more widely in the teens. So that's when the high is in place. We're more widely in the teens, 13, 15. Wouldn't be surprised if we can get a 16 or a 17 somewhere across the south. And as I said, by then the winds will be lighter. So if we take a look at the feels-like temperatures, because that's going to be key at the moment out there, because it's still fairly brisk, the wind. Not as windy as yesterday, but it is still fairly lively. The winds today making it feel single figures for many places. Tomorrow, again, with that wind, it won't be as strong, but the temperatures are lower, so we're only looking at 6 and 7 degrees, something like that. Thursday, still feeling with the wind more like single figures. But as we get towards Saturday, those temperatures do start to creep up because those winds will be getting much lighter. Now, they're the daytime temperatures, but what I really want to show you is the nighttime temperatures. This time of year, I mean, I'm no big gardener myself, but I know people will be starting to put out little plants. Just bear in mind, there are some frosts in the forecast as we go through this week. The minimum temperatures this week are going to be quite interesting. Down into single figures in quite a few places tonight, and that's in towns and cities. Rural spots may well hit freezing, and it's going to be similar throughout this week as we look at the next few days. Now, what I'm going to show you here is the change in the nighttime temperatures from 24 hours earlier. So this is tonight's map. So this is compared to 24 hours ago. Last night was pretty chilly, so it's actually going to be a bit warmer over Wales and southwest England compared to last night. But if we fast forward to Thursday, look at that blue on the chart. Clear skies and light winds, because as the winds fall light, it allows the temperature at the surface to drop away. If you have more of a wind, it churns up the atmosphere, it mixes up the atmosphere so that bottom layer close to the Earth's surface doesn't get as cold because it gets mixed in. But with lighter winds tomorrow night, these are the temperatures compared to the previous night. So this is Wednesday night into Thursday morning. Thursday morning is going to be much colder than Wednesday morning. And yet, we fast forward to Friday morning, then it's going to be much warmer. So again, these are temperatures compared to the previous day. So much, much higher. Much milder start to the day on Friday, but then we go forward to Saturday and we're back blue again. So temperatures, really, the nighttime temperatures or early morning temperatures, really going to be flip-flopping somewhat over the next few days. Just all dependent on how much cloud we have and where we keep those clearer skies. So it's going to be chilly on Thursday morning, not as cold on Friday morning, much colder again on Saturday morning, and the potential, particularly in this zone over southern Scotland, northern England, Wales, parts of the Midlands, for a touch of frost tonight, tomorrow night, and Friday night into Saturday morning. So gardeners, farmers, take note of that. Don't be planting out any of your delicate plants yet, and if you have done, make sure they are covered up for a little bit of protection. So we are going to see temperatures up and down quite a bit over the next few days and nights. Another way of looking at that, just wanted to show this graph because I like the way it edits and goes up and down. So picking somewhere across to maybe in the Peak District there, you can see those temperatures dropping Wednesday, Thursday. Probably find somewhere a bit colder through the Welsh Marches. There you go. So that Thursday temperature starting below freezing there, whereas Friday morning we're up at 8 degrees Celsius. So quite a big switch there between those temperatures. And again, further south, start Wednesday, start Thursday on the chilly side. Friday is much, much milder. So we are going to see those temperatures fluctuating quite a bit, particularly at night. And a lot of that will be to do with the cloud cover and how much cloud we see over the next few nights. Let's fast forward to Thursday. So yeah, this is the start of Thursday. That's why it's going to be cold across England and Wales Thursday morning, because we've got the clear skies, we've got the light winds, whereas another weather system bringing cloud and rain into parts of Scotland and Northern Ireland, so that cloud will keep the temperatures up here. By the time we get to Friday, let's rewind that. The cloud and the rain are coming south, so that's why we have a much milder night for Friday morning, Thursday night, Friday morning across England and Wales. Much more cloud and outbreaks of rain and a fairly stiff breeze as well. And then that gets all out of the way. And by the time we get to Saturday, you can see now with the winds going like that, that's the high pressure. That's the high pressure moving in, bringing many places a fine and dry weekend. Not everywhere. There will be weather fronts brushing in across northern Scotland into the weekend. So yes, northern Scotland will continue to see some cloud and some outbreaks of rain. But as we'll see in a minute, actually, northwest Scotland has been one of the driest parts of the country so far through this spring. So it is the turn of northern Scotland to get a little bit of rain, whilst the rest of us should get a decent respite from the rain for Saturday and for Sunday. So interesting to see those temperatures up and down as we go through this week, and then the weather really settling down as we go into the weekend. Okay, I talked a little bit about those stats. Let's delve a little bit more into the stats that we've seen so far through April. I know you're all desperate to know what Aidan's doing there. More on that in just a second. First of all, let's have a look at how wet it has been. This is the rainfall graph for April this year, the cumulative rainfall over the course of the month. This black line is the average. The dark grey zone is from 10% to 90%, and this orangey line here is the highest that we've ever recorded in well over 100 years of data. And you can see where we are now, the blue line going up here. We started to bang on average on April the 1st, but since then we have been well above the average. And actually, as of a couple of days ago, this is data up to the 14th, so up to Sunday, doesn't include yesterday's data yet, but we are at the top there. We are level with the wettest April on record. Now, that will drop down as you go through the weekend with that high pressure moving in, which will bring a few days of drier weather. So expect that to dip back under this all-time wettest level as we go through the rest of this week. But we are well above the top 5% of wettest Aprils so far. It has been an exceptionally wet month. But it's also been a pretty warm month. This is the mean temperature plot, again going the same. So cumulative days going along the bottom, data up to the 14th of April compared to the average line, that black line there, We have been well above. We started a little bit above, but it has been well above. And again, we're in the top 5% there, above that light grey shading. Not quite at the all-time record for April, but not too far off. It has been, as well as being wet, it's been very mild, helped in particular by some particularly mild nights. Again, that may well change as we see some chillier nights over the rest of this week. We could expect a little bit of a dip, and the rest of this week the maximum temperatures will be around or below average as well. So that may well dip down a little bit over the rest of this week, but it has been so far a very mild and a very wet month, and it has in fact been a very mild and wet season as well. So this is showing the same thing, the mean temperature, but for spring. Now, for us meteorologists, spring is the whole of March, the whole of April, the whole of May. We break it each season down into 3-month sections. So spring starts on the 1st of March for us, ends on the 31st of May. And this is again showing the temperatures throughout spring. Started a little chilly back in the early part of March, and then since then we've been certainly through the second half of March and all of April we've been above average. Not quite at the all-time record there, but not far off it. And again, within the top 5% warmest springs so far. We are, of course, only halfway through spring, so still plenty of time to go. And we're only, what, do the maths, between a third and a quarter of the way through the year. But again, the annual temperature record is also running pretty high so far for 2024. Started off mild. There was that cold spell in January, which dipped us below the average, but since February we've been above the average as well. So it has been a very warm as well as pretty wet start to the year. Let's look at the rainfall totals for spring in map form. This is really interesting because it's showing that some places have already had their spring rainfall, their average spring rainfall, and we're only halfway through the season. So halfway through spring, as I said, it's March, April, May counts as spring for us meteorologists and climatologists. So at this time, at this stage, you would expect, if it was a bang on average, this map would be brown. So the 50% mark is that first shade of brown to the second shade of brown. So that's where you'd expect to be if we were bang on average. Some parts are slightly below average across northern Scotland. I said it's been somewhat drier here, but there are some blue tinges on the map. In particular here, around the Edinburgh area, parts of East Lothian, the east of Northern Ireland, Cumbria, Pembrokeshire, parts of Devon and Cornwall. So quite wide areas where we are already above average, between 100 and 130% of the whole of spring, with still another half of it to go. And that's this kind of map. I wanted to show it because it kind of shows you what the weather patterns that we've been seeing. We've had a south shifted jet, so we've had a lot of weather systems coming in from the Atlantic and bringing their rain in further south than usual, which is why it's been drier than average across the northwest. Coming in from the west, which is why it's not been as wet across parts of East Anglia because the rain tended to run out. But it has still been fairly wet here. Most of them are still above the average here. It's only that extreme tip of East Anglia and Lincolnshire that are close to that average mark. So already some counties, some parts of the UK have had their spring rainfall. As I said, we're only halfway through it. One more map I wanted to show you because I thought I quite like the colours really. Pretty purple map here. This is showing the winds and the wind anomaly for April. So we're back to April stats now, and this is showing the wind, how much windier or not it's been than usual. I wanted to show this because we posted a TikTok yesterday about things to know about the weather this week. Loads of comments on it about please stop the winds, it's been so windy, why has it been so windy? And this backs that up. This is showing how much windier than usual it's been, with purple colours windier than average, the yellows, the whites and the pale yellows close to average. A couple of little pockets where we're close to or slightly below average there, but most of it in the purple zone. Now, it is necessary to point out that this is compared to the whole month of April, and we're only halfway through, but the second half of April perhaps tends to be a little lighter in terms of winds compared to the first half, but still it does show that we are above average in terms of wind strength. We haven't got these maps for the whole of spring, but I suggest that it would probably show something pretty similar. I'll have a look back as well and maybe put the March one up another time as well, because I think March was pretty windy as well. So just interesting to see that it has been very windy, and again, all to do with the the fact that the jet stream's been south shifted, and we've seen lots of low pressure systems bringing rain and bringing gusty winds, but also bringing mild air, which is why the average temperatures have been above average. So really interesting spring so far, really interesting April so far as well. Things will change. Obviously, we've still got half the month to go, and it does look a bit drier next week. As I mentioned, what could happen next week is the area of high pressure starts to waddle back a little further this way. A lot of the models are suggesting it'll edge back further this way. Still influencing the UK, still bringing a lot of dry weather, but as it heads this way, it will allow more of the winds to come down from the north and northeast. So eastern areas are more likely to see a few showers as we go into next week. But Aidan will have much more on that on the 10-day trend as we go through tomorrow. Speaking of the great man, there he is in all his glory. We posted this video, I think, at the back end of last week on YouTube, all about Aidan going up in a glider and enjoying the thermals. I don't want to put too much of a spoiler on it, but yeah, he has some fun, shall we say. And yeah, I don't want to put too much spoiler on it, but go and check that video out on YouTube. Big thank you for watching. Do keep your comments coming. I will be in the comments from probably about 4:30 this afternoon for about half an hour. So if you've got any questions, do put them in there, and I might see them, might answer them direct. But if you're watching this later than that, don't worry. Do please keep your comments coming. We do read them, and we really enjoy them. Big shout out to Greg, who's been pressing the buttons next door. He's recorded me today. Greg is reasonably new to the team, so show him some love in the comments as well. That would be great. He's doing all the hard work and doing all the edits and making sure we can record these as well. It is a big team effort. Big thanks to Nick again for pointing that radar out to me yesterday. Thanks for watching. Do hit the like button, do share the love, and please make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel as well. But from me for this week's deep dive, it's goodbye. Thank you so much for watching this week's deep dive. We love making them, and we want to make them better. So please do keep your comments and suggestions coming about how we can improve the deep dives. I mentioned in this week's about Aidan's gliding video. Please do go and watch it. I highly recommend it, and it's very easy to do so because it's just here. All you have to do is click on that. And again, if you've got any other suggestions about other videos like that we can make out and about, please do put them in the comments.